Recently I had some early morning work that had me setting out with my camera kit. My work started just after sunrise, so it occurred to me it was the perfect time to venture out and have a little fun with the camera, and that is what is going to be the subject of this video today. So in lieu of my full review of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II camera, which I promise is coming, please accept this experience video, which should show you a little bit of, well, not only my creative process, but sort of the experience that you can expect working with this camera. There was an incredible looking sunset that lured me down some country roads, and I pulled out the R5 Mark II configured for the video work that I had, so this is what it looks like with the cooling battery grip, which is an accessory that I use for extended runtime recording. This has also got the Mikey EF lens adapter mounted on, and this is the adapter that has got the neutral density filter that you can pop into the adapter, and the EF version of the 16-35 f2.8 lens, the Mark III version of that lens. So the scene that had attracted me to stop is more of a telephoto shot, and I remember that I was packing the new RF 28-70 f2.8 lens, and so I thought, well, I'm recording this POV video for YouTube. I will sort of show what the experience is of using that new lens for landscape photography as well. So I mounted that lens on. You can see no adapter, makes for a nice tidy package. The lens is small. It actually reminds me of a 24-70 f4, losing 4 millimeters of wide angle focal length. But with this combination, you get a nice, tidy, concise package. And for a weather sealed lens at $1,100, I've found it to be a pretty strong value, of course, and you get that extra stop of aperture. Whenever you pull out the camera and turn it on, you get this message to set the lens to the shooting position. On my cinema cameras, I'll note, since we're discussing this lens, I can go ahead and operate the menu for example, I can black cap balance the camera on the stills cameras on the R5 Mark II and my R7. You can't do anything on the camera, like you can't even turn the camera on and review your images or anything without setting the lens to the shooting position. So anyway, it functions sort of like a kit lens, a telescoping kit lens in that way. So this was the scene that I was attracted to, this pond. Only when I got close did I realize that there was not going to be any way to omit this power line from the composition. So I was sort of trying to compose with that in here, and I took the first shot. But then I remembered that the camera advertises like 7 stops of image stabilization, so I decided maybe I'll push the boundaries of the shutter increment a little bit, and I opened the shutter up to 1/5 of a second to shoot this at ISO 100 to compare if I got a better result at ISO 800 using the reciprocal rule, or at ISO 100, sort of relying on the image stabilizer. And to my eye, this does still look a little better using the reciprocal rule. So in my experience, this is more of a 3 stops or so of assistance from the image stabilizer. Now, I'll have a little bit more to say about this processing shortly. The photos you just saw were processed with the Adobe Color Profile straight out of Lightroom. I didn't get far down the road and I saw some of these cattails, and you gotta, if you see a pond in the country and there's cattails, you gotta get the cattails in the photo. So rush back down to the side of the pond, and in this instance, you can see that there are some issues composing with a big void in the water and a big void in the sky. And what you're gonna see in this section is me sort of trying to compose those elements together to fill those voids in the frame, while putting negative space to good use, or eliminating negative space where I didn't want it. And I don't think I was completely successful here, but this is the result that I got. Now, this again is processed through with the Adobe Color Profile out of Lightroom, but I decided to play around with the Auto Retro presets. And so this rendition is with the Auto Retro 1 automatic preset in Adobe Lightroom, and I thought that was really nice. But then I remembered, since I've got this camera, I've been shooting the JPEGs as backups, and that's normally how I think of the JPEGs, but I thought, well, let's look at the camera processing also and see how that looks. And so this third rendition that you're seeing here is the processing that's done by the R5 Mark II. And so we'll put those all three on the screen simultaneously so you can sort of see which you like best, because for me, the auto retro processing was a little strong and the Adobe color profile looked terrible. And I really thought that the processing out of the camera was a pretty good middle point. So, but you guys tell me what you think in the comments. I continued on my rural journey and found a hay bale out. Now, this would not be a freshly harvested hay bale in February, so that's kind of interesting. It's probably been brought out to feed some livestock, and so, but you don't see this every day, so I had to stop and take a picture of it. Now, this again is with the Auto Retro preset, and now with the out of camera processing. And rolling back on the Auto Retro preset. If you haven't tried these Auto Retro presets, a lot of times, I think there are 8 or 9 of them, maybe 10 included with Lightroom, and a lot of times I can find I get a good result, something like you might see out of a Fuji camera, right, with a film simulation, by applying one of these Auto Retro presets to the raw files. Lastly, I saw this scene. It was a distant scene, so it gave me a chance to take the 28-70 off, get a little variety, shooting with my old 70-200 EF lens. And I had intended to shoot this through the car window, not because I am too lazy to get out of the car, though I was, but so that I could stabilize it against the steering wheel, because you could see, because I was too lazy to get a tripod, essentially, not because I was too lazy to get out of the car, but I could not get a good looking shot through the windshield and ended up using the hood of the car to stabilize the camera. So still too lazy to use a tripod. And I think that probably contributed to the less than stellar result that I got out of that shot. So at this point, I think I've been out for not quite an hour, and I did manage to do about an hour of landscape photography on this particular morning. I've been wanting to focus more on roads, and I set around to sort of look for a road that could cap off my morning of shooting. And I found this scene where 3 roads come together, and just thought I would do some studio work. And I put the 16-35 back on. So now at this point, I've worked at wide angle, at standard, and at telephoto focal lengths in my exploration. Again, this is not precisely the type of road that I'm trying to focus on, but I thought, it might be a good chance to test technique and just stay fresh in my practice. So you can see more examples of the type of road photo that I'm looking for on my Instagram profile, and you can find a link to my Instagram profile in the video description, as well as links to all the gear that I'm using today, all these lenses, and the R5 Mark II camera. I recalled that this might be a good chance to show you my technique for getting sunstars. So what I did to get this sunstar is I used the depth of field preview. I engaged that while I was composing so that I could see where the alignment of the camera was to get a sunstar poking through those tree branches. And then I disengaged the depth of field preview to take the photo. Got a great result doing that. And then I took this photo, preferring the composition. And if you're curious, this is how much I was able to recover from the highlights on the R5 Mark II with a, I think, -4 stop exposure adjustment. And lastly, I was interested in these 2 trees, so I set up nice and low so I could look up at these trees and get lots of this foreground interest, and I just biffed it. You guys, sometimes you just biff it. I clipped off the light the right edge of that tree. So I thought, well, I'll show you what I can do with I'll show you what I can do with generative expand in Photoshop. And so I let Photoshop fill in what I had hoped would be the side, a little space on the side of that tree, and then I had to do it again, and then I had to do it again. So in this instance, thanks for nothing, Photoshop. Not a lot of win for Adobe's in this outing. However, I did have lots of great photos. The sunrise was spectacular. Now it's an even hour, and I've got to get to my 8 o'clock appointment, and I'm happy to share that with you guys. Stay tuned for my final review of the R5 Mark II. If you want to see how it is for landscapes specifically, look at my last video. I'll leave a link for that in the video description or in a card up here. If you want to know more about the camera generally, after I've used it for probably a couple dozen jobs professionally, then stay tuned for the next video. Until I see you then, you guys keep an eye out and a foot forward, and thanks for watching. Bye.